The other team that was extremely impressive yesterday was the Dallas Cowboys. Listen, I know that people kind of have to begrudgingly acknowledge the truth sometimes and are a bit reluctant to do this, given the mockery that we've seen from the Cowboys in recent years and all the jabs that we've been able to take at them. But we kind of have to reassess what we think about this Dallas Cowboys team after kind of running roughshod over this Carolina Panthers defense and winning 36-28. Yes, the Panthers made this a game late, but the score doesn't totally reflect how much of a dominant performance this was for the Dallas Cowboys. It's time that we start taking these Dallas Cowboys a lot more seriously. And I'll be honest, this Cowboys team is without question a top 10 team in the NFL, likely a top 7 team. You can make a strong argument that they're a top 5 team in the NFL. The 3-1 record, the balance that they've been showing. And the reality is, I said this when the Cowboys beat the Chargers, that the big takeaway for me was that they finally rediscovered and recaptured their identity. They finally reestablished who the Dallas Cowboys were and what made them successful several years ago, and what's been a staple within this organization for years, which is a dominant offensive line and a dominant run game. Those have been the two calling cards for this team. You have great offensive line play, and the offensive line is opening up these holes and providing these gaping holes for the running backs to find room and to take advantage. And the reality is, the Cowboys needed to return to their old form to have some success. This was the offensive line. I said this 2 weeks ago. This was the offensive line that we had seen when DeMarco Murray was the NFL's leading rusher in 2014. This looked like the offensive line that helped Ezekiel Elliott become the NFL's leading rusher in 2016 and 2018. That's how dominant they were playing. In fact, entering this contest, the Carolina Panthers had an NFL best 14 sacks on the year through the first 3 games, and this offensive line didn't allow a single sack. Now, sometimes Prescott was pressured a little bit, but they kept him upright. And that's a credit to the offensive line kind of returning to the form. You had the run game extremely impressive and extremely potent. Ezekiel Elliott, 20 carries, 143 yards, a rushing touchdown. In fact, that was the first triple-digit rushing mark for Ezekiel Elliott since 2018. And his 47-yard run was the longest run that he's had since his rookie year in the NFL. So he was extremely impressive. You had, well, I think before I even touch on Tony Pollard, who was also fantastic, 67 carries, averaged 6.7 yards per carry, 3 consecutive games for Tony Pollard of at least 60 yards on the ground. But going back to Ezekiel Elliott, what I'm starting to see from him, and I knew he was starting to he looked a lot slimmer in the offseason, in the preseason training camp, but a lot of players look smaller. But he kind of regained that physicality, that strength. He kept churning his legs, and he's not going down as quickly as we kind of saw him go down last year, and especially the last couple of seasons. And dare I say that perhaps this might be able to ignite him to returning more consistently to his old form, because if they're able to establish Ezekiel Elliott like this, well, now you have a serious threat in the NFC. And they ran 245 rushing yards, again, against a Panthers defense that was statistically rated the number 1 defense in the NFL. In fact, in their first 3 games of the year, they only conceded 135 rushing yards, 245 for the Cowboys yesterday. They nearly doubled that mark in 1 game. So this is listen. I think there are tons of compliments to go around on the offensive side. And then defensively, this is one of the more impressive defensive performances that we've seen from the Cowboys. Again, the fact that they were so putrid last year, to be able to have this turnaround, Micah Parsons with a sack. The Cowboys had 5 sacks yesterday. Randy Gregory had 2. They had 8 tackles for loss, 11 quarterback hits. They were getting after Sam Darnold. They were pressuring him. Trayvon Diggs had 2 interceptions. In fact, he leads the NFL in interceptions with 5 on the season. He's had at least 1 interception in every single game this year. This defense is playing extremely well. They're playing confident. And again, when you got that pressure being applied up front and you've got the cornerback out of Alabama and Diggs in this secondary playing with confidence, well, I'm not saying the Cowboys defense needs to be elite every night, but if you get these types of performances where they're inducing some turnovers, they're creating turnovers where you have an opportunistic defense, you establish the run, and then you've got Dak Prescott, who simply played mistake-free football, which is something that we've complimented him for years on. 188 yards passing, nothing too special. 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 0 turnovers. And it's not that Dak Prescott isn't capable of throwing for 400 yards or isn't capable of carrying a team or leading the Cowboys to individual wins, because he is. We've seen it. But where this team is at their best, where they have the most success year in and year out, is when they're running it more than they're throwing it, or at the very least, when they're establishing the run game more than the pass game. In fact, this is the most unbelievably telling stat. The Cowboys are 27-0 with Ezekiel Elliott and Dak Prescott when the Cowboys are running it more than they're passing it. It's the most telling stat there is, because it reflects what their identity is. And again, this is the first season in several years where it just feels like the Cowboys have recaptured and rediscovered and reestablished what that identity is. Great offensive line play, establishing the run, playing mistake-free football. That's what they've been doing.